Tonight is your night, bro. Tonight won't be just any night as the New York Knicks home playoff game #1. The Garden's going to be rocking. It's going to be electric. It is a must-see New York sports moment, and it happens 6.5 hours from right now. Plus, we got a lot of other stuff to talk about as well, including Evan is upset with me. First time in 2.5 years that we have a little thing going on between us because he actually expected me to stick up for his lousy basketball team this morning and again today, but I wouldn't do it. Good morning and afternoon, Evan. How are you today, kid?
What if I kick you in the balls and we'll find out if I get sent home from work or if it's no big deal? Why don't we play that game?
Yeah, well, because Embiid missed your guys' balls.
Stop.
He did.
The fact that you went on national TV and was ballless to not call out Joel Embiid. It's not your fight. Analyze it. What's your opinion?
Yeah.
It was a disgrace he wasn't thrown out of last night's game. He is a dirty player. Just ask Jared Allen. You bitched and you cried about a basketball play Jared Allen made on Julius Randle.
That's right. He tackled
What about
him from
Joel
behind.
Embiid? And here's why all of you Philadelphians are a bunch of hypocrites. The greatest moment you've ever had in the last 30 years is Allen Iverson stepping over Ty Lue. Now when Nick Claxton does it, you get sensitive? Oh no. The NBA should show some guts and suspend Joel Embiid for Game 4 and right the wrong. Now, I'm a fair guy. James Harden should not have been ejected yesterday.
Now, he actually made contact with another man's balls.
But it wasn't on purpose.
I agree.
Joel Embiid, because he's a sensitive little decides to kick another human in the balls.
Yes.
This has nothing to do with the Nets. This has nothing to do with this series. I'm not wasting your time talking about this series. I'm talking about Embiid. And you're on national TV and you won't call him out? Well, I'll do it for you. He's a piece of crap who needed to be suspended. Draymond Green, it's like a national discussion.
Right.
Oh, because of his past history?
Of course.
I'll play videos for you.
Because he
Joel
stomped on
Embiid
another man's
is
ribs.
dirty.
Yes.
Dirty. Ask Jared Allen. Did you watch 2019?
A couple years ago.
He elbowed him in the face.
Yeah.
Blood everywhere. He hard foul, swiped his arm down on him, tomahawk chop. You're welcome, Rod Burndamore. He's done that. He's a dirty player. And I want to make this also very clear. I'll get this out of the way.
Yeah.
The Nets would have lost either way. This has nothing to do with that. It has to do with justice. And I thought you of all people,
that's right,
Mr. I hate Philly, I take on Philly, I mock Philly. Why don't you grow a pair and call out this fraud?
Well, I'll tell you why.
Go.
Because Nick Claxton broke the cardinal rule of men.
Shut up! Iverson did it! Iverson did it!
In NBA Finals, that's right.
And did Ty Lue kick him in the you-know-what?
He probably should have.
But he didn't.
He didn't, that's right. But Nick Claxton stepped over a down man.
Stop.
And that's like spitting in a guy's face.
Stop it.
So what did he got? He got kicked to the thigh. He then flopped like he got shot.
Flopped. He got kicked in the you-know-what.
You got a flagrant 1. And then with a couple minutes left, 99-97, Joel Embiid makes the block to end the game.
Joel Embiid is a great player. He made a big play in the right moment.
Yeah.
Nick Claxton is a fool for getting his second team getting thrown out of this game.
Correct.
I'll discuss that on a podcast.
Yeah, not
What I want to focus on right now
the dirtiness
is how bullish you were for not calling out Embiid this morning or even right now. We're on a New York radio station.
Yeah.
Should Joel Embiid have been ejected last night?
No.
You're disgraceful. This is an issue between us now.
You want to ask me a question and you want to play a little game of fantasy, Evan?
All right.
Should Jared Allen have been kicked out of Game 2 against the Knicks? Yes.
Oh, God.
Because he tackled the defenseless Julius Randle from behind. That's a flagrant 2 where I come from.
Stop it.
Anyhow, listen, Sixers up 3-0 against your Nets.
I'll just say this real quick.
Game 3 tonight at the Garden for the Knicks.
Real quick about this, in all seriousness. So I lost my mind last night.
I got to tell people this.
Yeah.
I got to tell people this. I'm sleeping last night, and I get a text message from my partner, okay? Give me 1 second. I'm going to bring it up right here. All right, here we go. I may not have a voice tomorrow because I mother effed Embiid at the top of my lungs for a good 5 minutes.
Yes.
Tomorrow morning, you represent New York and common sense.
Common sense.
And call Embiid and this league out for this disgrace.
Where am I wrong?
Oh, I love it.
Here's what I know, though, in all seriousness. I did mother bleep Embiid very loudly at Barclays, which is okay. I got my fellow Net fan around me.
Why not?
If, God forbid, this happened in Philadelphia,
oh boy,
I would be dead right now.
You would not. Based on how you sound even now, 18 hours later,
I'm so fuming.
You would have had a tough time getting out of that building, I imagine.
Because remember, I've always told you this. When Roger Clemens threw the bat at Mike, same thing happened. I lost my mind. I lost all sense of everything. And Yankee fans.
That was the day you left your buddy stranded in the Bronx, right?
No, completely different story.
Oh, okay.
No. I was at Yankee Stadium in 2000, and I said every bad word about Roger Clemens, but the Yankee fan looked at me like I was an animal. But they weren't offended. They were just like letting it go, like, okay, we get it.
They understood.
I don't know if I do this in Philadelphia, if I end out alive. So I'm just glad that happened in Brooklyn, where I could come in today.
There you go.
I can eventually get over it, and we could all move on with our lives. Boston in 4.
There you go. Anyhow, we do have Cavs Knicks tonight. We'll do a lot on that throughout the day. The big news in sports right now, it's really, it's a tough pill to swallow, and the NFL and all the other leagues are going to have to now come to terms with the reality that everybody's allowed to gamble. Now, all the leagues do allow their players to legally wager on all the other sports, meaning if you're an NFL player, you are allowed to wager on baseball, hockey, and basketball. If you're an NBA player, you're allowed to wager on football, hockey, and baseball, and on and on and on. The rub here is that if you're an employee of the NFL, not a player, though, you are banned from wagering.
Right.
So I know it's a weird distinction, but I want to make it clear. The trainer for the Jets, random example, or Miles Austin a year ago, who's a coach for the Jets, not allowed to wager on any sport because those are the rules of the NFL.
I also
Players
read,
are treated differently.
I also read in regards to this that they're allowed to play fantasy football, not daily, like year-long fantasy, unless the prize money exceeds $250. Okay, which I thought was interesting too.
Right. So they're trying to recognize that society has changed in regards to gambling and fantasy. Okay, so you have a bunch of guys on the Detroit Lions that you never heard of, frankly, except for maybe one of them, Jameson Williams.
Well, Jameson Williams, people.
But wide receiver, Alabama, 5-star guy, all that stuff. The guys you never heard of did wager on NFL games, and they are now suspended for a year like Calvin Ridley was, and they have to apply for reinstatement in a year, and then most likely they'll get it. The Jameson Williams story is interesting because he did not wager on NFL games. He got a 6-game suspension. And here's where we have ourselves a problem. If you allow guys to wager on the other sports, which you're allowed to do, how do you then penalize a guy for wagering on the other sports? Well, we learned the little wrinkle in that rule. And that is that if a guy goes on his phone to whatever app he wants to go on to gamble, even if he's gambling on another sport, which he's allowed to do, he still can't do it on team facility or team complex. So Jameson Williams, apparently, because we don't know all the details, was in a Detroit Lions facility, went on his phone, wagered on a non-NFL event. When all the reports came back, because there's an independent company that does have every player's name in a database, if and when that player with Social Security and all that stuff, the red light goes off, the NFL's alerted, the team is alerted, and the investigation happens. So they realized that this kid was gambling on non-NFL games, but did it from the confines of a Detroit Lions facility. Meaning, if he got in his car or went out the front door and walked across the street, like we used to do here when you had to go to Jersey to legally wager on football games only a couple years ago, as you know, or you'd have a buddy in Jersey do it for you. If he walked across the street, he could legally make the wager. The NFL cannot suspend him. But because he was sitting or standing on Detroit property, Lions property, he's now suspended for 6 games. What are we doing?
That's one of those things where if you want to have a rule, like if Odyssey had a rule, we can't bet on sports while we're in the facility, I'd say, okay, it's kind of dumb, but whatever. If I broke that rule, I don't think the punishment would be, I'm going to suspend you for a month. It would probably be, hey, reminder, you shouldn't bet here. This is a warning. I don't necessarily think it should turn into a 6-game suspension. Like, I get the rule existing, But it seems like a minor infraction when you're allowed to do it if you walk 50 feet the other way.
Right, and that's the stupidity of it. That literally, if this kid walked out the front door, I don't know what their facility looks like, and 100 yards away there's a Carvel ice cream shop, and he went into the Carvel and made the wager on a non-NFL game, and then came back into the facility, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But if he sits on a couch in the lobby of the facility, now he's going to get suspended 6 games.
And that's the problem. How do you go from you're allowed to do it to it's a 6-game suspension? It seems like a minor difference. Now, the 4 other guys that bet on the NFL, that's a big deal. And I agree with the league. They have to come down hard on those guys.
You have no choice.
Betting on the NFL is a dangerous thing if you're an active NFL player.
Yeah, and listen, it's happening. Now, the guys that, I hate saying it in this manner, are smart about it, I just have somebody else doing it for them. Like all these players are now told at the start of every season, look, your name is in a database. I'm blocking on the independent company's name. Not that it's relevant. I apologize for that. But all the leagues use the same company.
Right.
All right? Your name is in a database. They have your social. They have your address. They've got everything about you. So if you go in there and you use your license or credit card to sign up, whatever it is, you're going to ring a bell right away. So these guys are doubly stupid because they're told that.
Right.
You could easily have someone else make the bet for you. I'm sure lots of guys do.
Oh, I'm sure there are guys we don't even know about, but I understand why that's a hard and fast rule. Like, I get why that turns into 1 year.
But the craziest thing about it is that NFL players, NBA players, NHL players, baseball players are allowed to wager on all the other sports, but employees of the team, non-players, are not.
Right.
I find that distinction to be absolutely, hair-raising stupid.
My best guess with that is the power to enforce that rule over league employees as compared to a players' association.
Because it's collectively bargained agreement.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's where you run into an issue. But for Jameson Williams, this is where I'd be pissed if I'm a Lion fan.
Go.
Because he's an impactful player. It doesn't feel like he deserves to miss 6 games.
I don't think he should miss a quarter.
Now, everybody else, you bet on the NFL, Calvin Ridley included.
You're out.
You're out. It doesn't even matter if it's 1 game, 10 games, $1, not my team, my team. It's a very, very dangerous precedent because there's one thing that can bring down the NFL. To me, there's only one right now, and that's the integrity of the game. That's the only thing. It is a powerhouse. It is a king. We all love the NFL. If we're questioning the integrity of the sport on a serious level,
you got a problem.
We got a problem. So I am totally with the NFL for coming down hard on guys who bet on the league. But the Jameson Williamson thing, it feels so...
It feels like the kid did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Like he followed the rules. He bet on a different sport, which he is allowed to do. And he did it from the facility as opposed to literally walking out the front door, getting in his car and doing it from there. That being said, these are the stories that although the leagues take the money as any other business would, hand over fist because you're in the business to make money. And I don't begrudge them that. But this is the problem. When you promote, market, and allow gambling on your product, and then guys in the league do it, there are people out there that go, aha!
Okay.
Aha!
Can we address that?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Because I've seen this all day on social media. I've heard this from people. Oh, this suspension is brought to you by FanDuel. Okay, it's funny. Ha, ha, ha. What's your point? Like, are you trying to say, because this is what I'm trying to figure out, the NFL should not take money for gambling ads?
Yeah, you can't. It's like saying that the live golfers shouldn't take money from Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
It's easy to say it when it's not you taking it.
It's ridiculous.
Right.
So if you agree it's okay for the NFL to promote FanDuel or DraftKings, whatever they want to do, then what's your next breath? Players should be allowed to bet on the NFL? So I'm very confused by the hypocrisy argument. Someone's got to explain to me, what do you want? Do you want the league to say, to do what they did for the last 40 years and make believe gambling doesn't exist and insult our intelligence?
That, they actually lobbied against it.
Right.
Even worse.
Think about that.
Yes.
Is that what you want? Or do you at least prefer this world in which they're honest about what's going on? And yeah, they're making a crap load of money off it, but at least they're not pretending like we're all schmucks.
See, here's where I congratulate and support the NFL. The NFL is transparent about, we pay an independent company, all the leagues do, and if that company comes to us and says, even a guy the public's never heard of, right? Mm-hmm. That so-and-so, all the way up to a kid like Calvin Ridley, who was a household name and building what could have been a really great career as a wide receiver in Atlanta before he got traded to Jacksonville. If a name comes to us, we don't care who the guy is. The guy's getting punished.
Right.
So I applaud the NFL for that level of transparency.
And I think the NFL should be, we're going to not ignore that gambling exists. We're going to make money off of it now, but we're going to have rules and restrictions. We want you, the consumer, to bet on the NFL if you want. You're allowed to.
Yep.
But we don't want our employees doing it because we're afraid it's going to hurt the integrity of our sport, which will bother you. So where's the hypocrisy? Yeah. Everybody likes to scream hypocrisy, but I don't see what the issue is. Like, what do you want?
By the way, I don't think there's any hypocrisy in this at all. To the contrary, we have both spent many hours taking shots at leagues for doing something that we find untoward. But I think the NFL in this regard has been incredibly transparent in that not only are we going to acknowledge that we had players gambling on the NFL and gambling on other sports, we're going to tell you who they are.
Yeah.
Like, we're not protecting them.
Do you think there's anything...
the hope there, is that, hey, listen, clearly guys didn't learn from Calvin Ridley. Maybe guys are going to learn from this story.
Right.
Maybe not, but that's the hope.
Is there something wrong with the NFL Network putting Ian Rappaport on, who's breaking the news, he's explaining the news, then they go to commercial and there's a FanDuel ad? Like, is that really a problem with people? Like, I don't understand what the issue is.
I think there's probably an older gentleman or gal that probably finds that something sleazy about it. But no, it's like we always, not you and I, but, the collective public that is outraged about everything, it always likes to tell you as a person or as a company, who to take money from, who not to.
Right.
But the reality is that if someone came knocking on your door and said, hey, we're going to give you a ridiculous amount of money to do what you're doing, and it's legal, and it's above board, but you may have to acknowledge that you're in business with us, and that may piss off one of your neighbors. Everybody is saying yes to that.
Right.
So let's not get on our high horse and go, oh, I can't believe they're taking the money.
That's why
it's it's not hypocritical. The only thing that's hypocritical from the NFL, and we just got to get over it, is that up until gambling became legalized on such a widespread basis, the NFL spent tens of millions of dollars fighting against it happening.
Correct, yes.
And then once they lost the battle, they got in bed with the enemy.
Right.
And that happened, and if you want to call them on the carpet for that, you have every right to do that. But they're not being hypocritical in saying publicly, we don't allow our employees and we don't want our member players gambling.
There are moments where the NFL's hypocritical. I'll give you an example off the top that always bothers me. You can in one breath say we care about player safety and then fight for 18 games. I think that's hypocritical.
Sure.
And talk about Thursday Night Football like, oh, it's no big deal to injuries. That's hypocritical, and the NFL does that, and they should be called out for that. I don't really see a hypocrisy issue here. They held people accountable. They don't want football players betting on football. I agree with them. I happen to think they're right.
They are right. And I can tell you this. It's one of the few things they lose sleep over, a major gambling scandal. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that I guarantee it keeps them up at night. Hey, we kind of made a deal with the devil here, right? But we're making gobs and gobs of money. So far, so good. All our partners are pretty straight. They all agree to use this independent company. Like, they're not going to take wagers if a guy rings a red light who's a member player. We're good.
Right.
We're good. We're good. Yeah, okay.
I just think they got to clean up this whole you can bet on other sports, you can't do it at the facility thing. Yeah. If you want to fine them,
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
If you want to fine them for that, like I get it being a rule. That's not my problem. It's does the punishment fit the crime on
you're
it?
Taking away 6 game checks from a player because that's what happens. Dude, he ain't getting paid.
That's a third of a season
for betting on an NBA game or whatever. I don't know what Jameson was betting on. I just know it wasn't NFL, and they acknowledge that. Because he did it here and not 100 yards away.
That's a third of the season?
Yeah, to me, that seems like that is an incredibly harsh penalty.
And if I'm not mistaken, isn't that the same suspension as a PED suspension? Seriously? That's on the same level in terms of integrity of the game?
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be. It absolutely shouldn't be. So we'll get all your calls on it. Listen, gambling ain't going anywhere. It's just getting bigger and bigger. The leagues do have rules. And for the most part, it seems like the guys follow those rules. And to me, it seems like Jameson Williams also followed the key part of the rule, which is don't bet on NFL. So the kid's sitting like, hey, who do we got in that Knicks-Cavs game tonight? Okay, well, wait a minute. Where'd you make the bet from? Now, the weird thing about that, I've seen the technology of this company because, as many people know, I'm a compulsive gambler. I do a show that FanDuel supports and 1-800-GAMBLER supports, and I spend a good portion of my life every day trying to counsel young men and women not to go down the road I went down. So I'm aware of what goes on, maybe even a little bit more than the average fan, only because I've now been exposed to it, right? And what's interesting about, this company is that they're really good at what they do, and the leagues respect that. So the NFL pays this league, it's 7 figures, Evan. It's a lot of money for this company to do what they do. And you'd like to think that, because it exists, because Calvin really got in trouble, and now these, 5 or 6 guys got in trouble, and one big name in Jameson Williams, at least from a Detroit Lions standpoint, that everybody else will get it. But the way they geo-target is state to state. Right? So they'll know a bet was made in whatever state. I don't think, and I could be wrong, that they geo-target down to the exact address. I know they're capable of it because the technology exists. I was unaware that they do it. And the reason I bring that up is if they're not geo-targeting you to an exact address when you make a wager, then I would ask the question, how did they find out that Jameson wagered on a non-NFL game from the Detroit Line facility?
Right.
They know he wagered. They know he's an NFL player.
But how do they know it was
that
there?
comes up right away.
Right.
So my issue is, how did they figure out where he made the wager from? Meaning the exact address. Because that was the report I read was he got pinched because he did it from the facility.
Yeah, that's why he got suspended. Yeah.
So how did they know that?
But don't when you during
Unless
the whole
somebody ratted him out.
Well, besides that,
Or
which is
maybe they
obviously,
do have the technology and they use it.
I think they do because think about it. When New Yorkers were going to New Jersey to bet on sports because they were allowed to, and they weren't here in New York, people would drive right on the border. So they know exactly where you are.
Or I know guys that got on the PATH train, went over to Hoboken, made a bet, got back on the PATH, and came back.
But isn't that the same thing? Because they know where you are physically.
But it's the state line. I didn't know. I was unaware that they were he's at 124 Main Street.
I would think that they'd be able to target that.
Yeah.
Or, to your point, someone's ratted them out.
Anyhow, it's every league's biggest nightmare. The NHL dealt with it with the player who was also having problems with his ex-wife, if you remember.
Yeah.
About a year ago, and she's like, he gambles on every game, but nobody wants to do nothing about it.
Does every sport have the same rule where the athletes can't bet on their sport, but they can bet on other sports?
Yes, it's in every single sport's collective bargain agreement.
Now, is it the same?
And the NHL Players Union was first to get it, and they all copied it.
But is that the same? Because here's where I don't say worry, but here's where I think it would be prominent. You're a baseball player. It's September. Your team's out of the pennant race. It's a Sunday morning. You're getting ready for your 1 o'clock game.
Yeah.
Can't you see everybody in that locker room saying, all right, who we betting on?
Yes.
So you're telling me that's not allowed because it's the facility, or is that different with baseball?
Well, yeah, it's funny. I didn't know that there was a facility rule until I read the charges against these guys.
Right.
I just knew that you can't bet on your own sport, but you are allowed to bet on all the other sports. But now what they're saying is, if you have 10 guys in a clubhouse and they're playing out the string in September, and they're like, all right, Eagles, Cowboys, 1 o'clock. You cannot do that from the clubhouse.
Right.
But,
but do we know if baseball has that rule?
Stands, across the street, but no problem.
Can we find out if baseball has that rule?
I can ask.
Ask, because here's why I'm curious. And I know it's not the same, but there's similarities. For years, baseball players have had football drafts in the locker room.
Yeah.
For years.
I mean, famously, the Tommy family blew up, right?
Right, Tommy.
Right.
Yeah, Tommy. It was the Mike Trout league, and Tommy fam punched the guy, Jock Peterson. Yeah. Now he's on the Mets.
Wait till when we take the break, I'll text my main man.
I'm just curious if every league kind of has the similar kind of rules in regards to that.
Yeah, we got that. We got the update for you on the cheater. I'm sorry, on Max Scherzer in regards to the sicky stuff. Fascinating that you'd swear on your children's lives and then accept a 10-game suspension when you said you didn't do anything that was worthy of a suspension. I find that pretty interesting. We'll get into that. And, of course, we have Knicks, Cavs tonight, Madison Square Garden. I will be in the building, embarrassing myself with popcorn. Cannot wait. My first Knick game this year. Oh, and I picked a good one.
You are such a typical fraud. His first game is a playoff
Helicopter fan, let's go.
The Knicks have played 3 home playoff games in a decade, and look who's showing up.
Hi, Emily. Hi, Spike. Craigie's here.
I think you'd be pretty excited about 2 of the people that were courtside last night in Brooklyn if either one of them was there.
I saw Nasty Nestor there.
Forget Nasty Nestor. Number 1, Damian Lillard was courtside.
Wow, that's an interesting one to me.
That is very
So
interesting.
he must be tied with a guy in one of the two teams.
Not going to get into it, but yes.
Probably a Sixer, I guess.
Mikal Bridges, but whatever.
Oh, is that his guy? Okay.
Loves Mikal.
Okay.
The second person I think you'd be pretty intrigued by is
The second person?
Coach.
Coach. Hold on, don't tell me. One of the local coaches was at the game?
Coach.
Well, hold on. Which coach would be a front-running weasel to go to a playoff game?
In Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn. Meaning he's not allowed to go tonight.
Why is that?
Oh, no. You can't. You don't play that game.
You want to see playoff basketball?
No. You cannot play that game.
So once you pick one place, you
if
can't go to the other?
If you are an athlete or a coach in this town, which I assume that's what you're alluding to,
yeah,
and you go to a Brooklyn Net playoff game, you cannot go to a Knick playoff game.
I want to get this straight because, as you may or may not know, the Nets playoff run ends tomorrow. The Knick playoff run may go on for a while. We have no idea.
Maybe.
Nasty Nestor is banned from Madison Square Garden. Is that what you're saying? Because he was there last night after being the winning pitcher.
Cannot go to the Garden and root for the Knicks.
Oh, come on.
Can't.
Come on.
You got to. I'm sorry. When it comes to playoffs, you got to pick your poison here. You can't go to the Garden for a Ranger game tomorrow and show up at UBS.
Yeah, but how do you know Nasty Nestor wasn't rooting for the ball kicker himself, Joel Embiid? Not James Harden. I actually defend him.
He missed his balls, by the way.
Dude, he tried to kick him.
I'm not saying he didn't try.
You defending him is disgraceful.
I'm not defending him.
I'm embarrassed for you.
I'm just saying
really
he missed him. He didn't make contact
Stop.
with the balls unless he's got balls that hang down to his knees.
Stop it.
Okay?
League should get it right. Suspend them for game 4.
Maybe you shouldn't walk over a guy on the ground. It's disrespectful.
Allen Iverson did it, and it's loved in Philadelphia.
Not by me,
Doesn't
it's
work.
not.
BS. You love it. You loved it then.
To be
you
fair,
love it now.
much different situation.
No, it's not. Why? Because it was a big shot at the end of a close game?
Much different situation. The way the body's laid out, where he was on the court.
It's worse.
NBA Finals.
It's worse. If you analyze Iverson over Lou versus Claxton over Embiid, Iverson was much more disrespectful.
Oh, yes, it was, because he easily just could have walked around him. Claxton at least could have been like, all right, I'm in a weird spot here. Let him get up.
And here's what annoys me.
And I guess he felt like, because, you watch that play, it was almost like a tip-in. It wasn't like a in-your-face, slam a jammer.
Right.
It kind of felt like he was flexing, right?
Of course he was flexing.
Yeah.
But the problem is, Nick got a tech on that. And then he picked up his second in the fourth quarter. He got ejected.
Yeah.
So he ends up getting thrown out, and the ball kicker doesn't.
The only guy that really got screwed was Harden.
I agree.
Yeah, that he legitimately got screwed.